understand it's 3:30 in the afternoon and everybody's kind of going to use this as a time to take a bathroom break before the start of the show comes. And I'm going to talk about a visualization. We have our little graphics here, and they're going to be available later for people to look at. I'll just kind of point out to it from time to time here. But what I wanted to kind of start off this discussion with is, do you ever notice how much easier it is to talk about the events of the last couple of years if you just admit it was a revolution in 2020? Yeah. And that the revolution succeeded? And that when you hear, for example, Democrats say we need to save our democracy, the true meaning of the word democracy maps exactly with the Marxist use of the language. And in fact, the American use of the language has always been wrong. And now it's being used to cover up the fact that the use that the word save our democracy means save the revolution. Ever thought about it that way? So can you think about correcting your Republican friends when they use the word democracy? Because it's no longer a harmless mistake. It is an active measure right now. Okay, and it's very important because as I have one little discussion point I'll have here, Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution of the United States of America says, the United States will ensure a Republican form of government. Now, I'm going to go classical on you, okay? Plato, in his Republic, said that among the better forms of government was a republic. But a debased form of government is a corrupted oligarchy leading to democracy. And if you go take a look at the language, the actual Greek language, it's the language of revolution. It's almost always neutrally translated into English, as there's tumult. But then Aristotle went even further, and he basically said a republic is the best form of government, and a debased form of that is a democracy. So I'm only laying this groundwork down because if you want to defend the West, you better start taking account of when our people on our side use language that was set in stone 2,400 years ago. Because what the Marxists say it means, well, we've had many democracies. Actually, I'll give you the names of the democracies in the last 100 years. East Germany, the Democratic Republic of Germany. The People's Democratic Republic of North Korea. If you understand people is a replacement for democracy, the People's Republic of China. The United States did not establish any democracies in Western Europe after World War II. The United States, the Federalists went out of their way to write a constitution to keep a democracy from ever happening. I get that it's an accidental use of the word that was harmless. It's not harmless anymore because it's masking what I will introduce as a concept called initiate language, a word that means one thing to the people who knows what it means, and it's kind of a weird use of the word or innocuous word for everybody else. You want a really good example? Peaceful protest. Okay? But you laugh because you are supposed to laugh. But the people who understood those were orders, and they executed on command, on time, that wasn't just a laugh. So I'm not joking. I'm not trying to be too heavy about, you're laughing. That's not the proper response. I get it. What I want to kind of follow up on is saying, this is as serious as whether we survive. Okay? It really is. So I'm going through my notes here. Back in the day, we were asked to write something about the left. And first of all, we lost funding for it in 2018 because we said we're going to use the word Marxists and communist. And so we said we're going to write it anyhow. It's re-remembering the misremembered left. And I promise you, if you read the first part of it, it's a headache. And if you read the second half of it, it's another headache. It is just hard because it introduces the concept of the dialectic. Why is that important? Because shortly after we wrote Re-Remembering and Misremembered Left, we put out something a year before the election called Warning on Racism. And we said that Marxists were going to use the upcoming presidential election to overthrow and delegitimize the electoral process in the United States. And they did it exactly the way we said. Now, I have something that came out about a week after the Floyd incident, but I can just tell you, people, including people in law enforcement agencies, 2 weeks before Floyd, had what we have on our webpages called Requiem for Minnesota. Requiem for Minnesota was something that was warning that when they locked down when they had an impeachment of the President of the United States and the Republicans agreed to it, they knew that they could get away with show trials. I'm actually speaking to one of my graphics that you're not going to see. From that point, they ordered the lockdown, so everybody was literally put in their homes as the left deployed around the world, and they were waiting for something to churn up. If it was going to start in Europe, it would be May 1st. It was going to start in the United States. It circles around Labor Day, Memorial Day weekend. So I wrote warning for racism and said why. Requiem for Minnesota, excuse me, why it's going to start in Minnesota. And it started exactly on time. So it's important to understand that when they start laying markers down, like they are right now, they're laying markers down and they'll drag a train through something, and if they have to invent something, they will do it. It's so important to understand that there's no doubt about the fact that Floyd died of a drug overdose. And no matter what you think about the police officers in Minneapolis, it was impossible to try them for second and third degree murder because he was a dead man walking. And there was nothing in the autopsy that revealed any mishandling of the police, and everything on like multiple axes showed that. So from the show trial of Trump, they used to get way of show trials, period. And are we in that world right now? So I think someone brought up the fact about the shots. I just want to point something out when we talk about revolutionary periods. If you remember, before Fauci said you should wear a mask, he categorically said you don't need one. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Okay, now I want you to not think about it your way. I want you to think about it from a revolutionary point of view. A revolutionary point of view would be, this is our showing that we can make arbitrary decisions and impose them on you, okay? And we will use a extra-legal mass line enforcement mechanism to do it. So it is true, all the reasons you have for why you shouldn't have had to wear a mask. But what's on a higher truth is the fact that what they were executing was the imposition of arbitrary power arbitrarily. And you did it. So it's with that I kind of sometimes come out of get in the wrong lane with some people. There's a sense in which the loudest voice you never heard in 2020 and to this day aren't the dogs that barked. It's the dogs that didn't bark. Every person you elected to stop this. And because we're going to talk about the dialectic, the airplane, it's important to understand that for you, the most important thing that happened in 2020 is that you had close to a majority in certain areas, people you elected, that if they barked, this could have been stopped. And they didn't bark at all. And I kind of suggesting that until you account for that, there's nowhere to go. So what I will say here leading into some of these graphics is, first of all, dialectics seek as their objective, the destruction of the object. Let me make this simple. If you're a dialectical Christian, you're a Christian who seeks to destroy Christianity. If you're a dialectical American, you adopt things in a way that negates being American, it means destroys being American. So the dialectical, anything that's dialectical, you could say is bad. Fair enough? Okay, because it seeks destruction. I'm going to avoid using the word negation.
Thank you.
But it's the actual word is negation. But I want to throw some other words in there and then kind of give you some context. When you bundle a whole series of these narrative attacks, dialectical attacks together, those attacks in bundle are called intersectional attacks, from which you get the word intersectionality. Fair enough? If those intersectional lines of attack destroy what they want to destroy, then from chapter 11 of Mao's book, The Mass Line, you are, well, it's usually translated as awoken, you are woke. And what does it mean to be woke? You have been denied your identity as a woman if you're a woman, a man if you're a man, an Irish American if you're Irish American, an American if you're American. So when you're awoken, you have been stripped of your identity in detail. And that is the objective of Marxism. And I think that's important because I know a couple people here started talking about, how much time? Oh my gosh. And we're not even getting to the slides. But does this make sense? Because I kind of want to give you the theme of what I'm talking about because, you know, there's only so much you could do with these little pictures, right? But what I want to do is give you the theme of these pictures, and that is that in unrestricted warfare, the Chinese colonels told you flat out, we're going to engage in a form of warfare that American leadership does not understand, will not ever get, and will not commit to. 20 years later, this is what it looks like. And I want to tell you what it is. It's dialectical warfare. So if I could give you a quote, I'll give you a quote from Lenin. Dialectics is the theory of knowledge. Dialectics is the theory of knowledge of Hegel and Marx. It is not an aspect of Marxism, it is the essence. So what I like to tell people is if you are fighting against Marxism and you don't account for the dialectic, you are gaining, you are a part of their narrative and you're generating their victory. It is more important to know the dialectic of Hegel and move it in to Marx than it is to know everything about Marxism and not be able to negotiate the dialectic. And what this brief presentation was going to really do, but I think we hit the point, didn't we? Yeah. Okay, is that the way the Chinese colonial strategy operates, if they have their way, you may never talk to someone who is an agent of China directly. You're just going to get sucked into narratives that guarantee your destruction by virtue of responding to their discussion. Thank you.